I'm King Link, and it's time for the Game Pass June 2022 review. We have a massive 18 games this month to cover, and I'm excited to start running down the list, as there's quite a few titles that are going to please fans. The rules for this coverage are I spend a night with each game, see how far I get in them, how they play, and if they're worth checking out. I'll tell you who will enjoy them and what to expect. With so many games, let's just get started with some massive creatures.
And this is Owen. He works with velociraptors.
You could call me a dinosaur wrangler, though officially I'm an animal behaviorist.
Jurassic World Evolution 2, one for the fans. Jurassic World Evolution is a really solid game where players take control of a series of parks across the 5 main islands in the areas of the original Jurassic Park movies. The sequel instead goes with an extremely short campaign of 5 missions focusing on teaching the player about running the park. We're talking about 5 hours for the entire campaign, and that really feels too short. But Jurassic World Evolution 2 is more about running the parks on your own, giving a sandbox or challenge mode similar to Planet Zoo. It's also a love letter to the films and tries to strike that nostalgic feeling once again, and actually does a good job. Though a lot of the voices feel good, I do have to call out an awful Owen Grady character who's not even trying to be Chris Pratt. Honestly, they should have just changed the name of the character and it would have been fine. Pick this up if you like the first Jurassic World Evolution or Planet Zoo, but just want more. But I think both the first game of the series and Planet Zoo are the better titles, sadly. Though if you want more dinosaurs, this is a good choice and has more of that Planet Zoo style feeling than the first game.
You think it's murder? I mean, clearly it's murder.
Her Story, an amazing and unique title. Her Story is easily one of my favorite stories in gaming. It's unique, different, and interesting. Players search a video database from the police that's a recording of an interview about a missing person named Simon. The questions asked of the interviewee are missing, so players have to piece together the story only from the interviewee's responses. To do this, players will have to figure out topics and words that the subject would use in answers, and then piece the story together from the various clips in the game. It sounds very odd, and at first, it is kind of strange and frustrating, but before long, the story takes over and the players will focus on the narrative and understanding what has happened. I'm also going to say this is probably one of the only games that I constantly think about and daydream about. There are a few pieces here that are just stuck with me to the point that I'm astounded at the experience. Considering this is just one woman acting on a videotape and it made me think this much about it, Her Story is incredible. Pick this up if you want a solid story told uniquely. If you remember Telling Lies from last year, I said it wasn't as good as the previous game from Sam Barlow. Well, Her Story is actually that game, and I highly recommend this. This is easily one of my favorite titles. I actually have a video on this game, and I'm going to link it at the end of this video, and possibly put it up as a card here if I don't forget. Umurangi Generation, a first-person shooter, and by that I actually mean photography. Umurangi Generation talks about being a first-person photography game, and I immediately thought that this could be like a stylish Mirror's Edge where the player's taking pictures. I overhyped myself on that. Instead, Umurangi Generation is just a puzzle game focused on taking pictures of different targets, and then once all the different targets have been snapped, you exit a level by delivering a package, which is going to a location. That's pretty much it. Umurangi Generation is a unique game based on that, but the photography angle is interesting, just not really that exciting. There are ways to gimmick some of the photographs to make your life easier, but more importantly, the gameplay just doesn't feel part of the world. Now, there is a story at the heart of the game, and it's a story that's kind of not told. The gameplay itself is also a bit too simplistic, and where I'm normally a guy who revels in unique titles, this one I'm kind of ambivalent about. Pick this up if you want something different. This is a puzzle game, but I think Paparazzi did the photography angle better, and the levels here are so small that you'll be able to break through this game in about 2 to 3 hours, at least I did. Honestly, this is probably one I'd skip unless your interest is really piqued. Little Witch in the Woods. Great art, but ugh, that writing. Little Witch in the Woods is an early access or game preview and has some great art. The characters are really cute, the animations are good, and the gameplay works well with both. You're a cute little witch who gets lost in the woods and finds a house. From there you use your potion brewing powers to solve different tasks like removing weeds or healing people. The problem is when Little Witch decides to have cutscenes. The writing in this game is awkward. Sometimes the motivation feels a little bit too on the nose, but most of the time the writing feels like it was done from a different language and feels off, which is probably because it is. The game was actually created by 2 people in South Korea, but the translation into English has not really helped it. At least this is early access, so maybe there is a full retranslation that might happen in the future, but I know a lot of people who adore this game, and if that's you, well, you know what? I'm glad. Pick this up if you like games that are so cute they're sickeningly sweet. This is a nice, warm, comfortable sweater of a game, though while I do like some of those types of things like Gilmore Girls, yes, I am a fan of Stars Hollow, this one just doesn't feel as good, and it's those cutscenes that really hold it back from being something I can adore. Vampire Survivors. Simple but addictive. Vampire Survivors looks like someone just knocked off Castlevania and did it quite badly. At first I wasn't really sure what's going on. The attacks you see are automatic. You can play this game one-handed because all the player's going to do is move the character around to avoid attacks and try to hit with their automated attacks. But then again, after 8 hours on that first day of just playing this game over and over, yeah, there's really something good here. This is a highly addictive yet simple roguelite. The goal is to stay alive as long as possible and kill enemies to rack up points and hopefully experience levels and gold. After you die, you'll use your gold to unlock new characters and upgrades. You'll also unlock pieces of the games by beating challenges, and that's pretty much it. You just repeat this process over and over. This is a true roguelite where it's just randomized gameplay rather than a story. Pick this game up if you need something to play that's simple but very interesting, or if you have between, 5 minutes and 8 hours to play. I like this game a lot, but I also have a lot of trouble putting this one down. I actually also picked this game up on Steam because it goes for about $3 and the developers easily deserve much more than that for it. Do not miss out on this title, it is definitely worth a try. Farming Simulator 22, Another Day on the Farm. Farming Simulator 22 has the player running a farm and have to harvest, plow, and seed the field over and over. It's a simple idea that works well with the simulation genre, and this is the 10th PC release for the series, so they know what they're doing. That being said, it is kind of similar to what Farming Simulator 19 was and likely what Farming Simulator 25 will be. As a game, this is very laid back and chill, though I kind of hate the fact that if the player's letting the AI work, the work happens in real time. Even if the player's sleeping for the day or changing the clock speed, the AI won't actually work any faster, so you just have to sit there and wait or take over and do the same chore at about the same speed. This is also a game that you'll need to sit down with a wiki and learn because not everything is well explained in the game itself. Even on some of the articles I've seen, it's not always clear where to buy stuff from, and a hint on that, it's always going to be the same store at the same location, at least from what I've seen. Pick this up if you want a laid-back life of a farmer. This was interesting for a night, but I don't know if I really want to take the time to learn the entire game at this point. However, if I wanted to play something where I could sit and relax and play for multiple hours at my own pace, well, Farming Simulator 22 is perfect for that. Floppy Knights, a card-based take on the turn-based tactics genre. Floppy Knight is a game where the main character collects discs and uses them to summon characters, move them, and attack enemies with them. Those discs act like cards, but allows players to build decks of actions and use them to tactically take out enemies. The game reminds me a lot of Fire Emblem or Advance Wars, but with far more focus on deck building. There are a lot of different cards and levels, and there's a decent amount of strategies required rather than just overpowering the enemy. Sometimes you get a bad deal, but most of the time the map and the bonus challenges are quite reasonable, and it's an engaging idea. However, it is just another card game. I remember when actual floppy disks were a thing, but there's not much here that directly relates to that concept. Pick this up if you like tactical games. This one is a great example, and the addition of deck building and organization makes the game far more interesting than I expected. The story is good as well, but for me this was much more focused on the optimizing my deck and chasing every last objective. Also, this is disc with a K since we're going all the way back to the floppy age.
You're not going around doing all the stupid newbie things, are ya? Going around trying to be the best out there?
Hardspace Shipbreaker, working on a salvage gang and making millions. Hardspace Shipbreaker gives players puzzle boxes in the shape of derelict ships that players must dismantle and pull parts out of. It's a simple concept, but every ship has a variety of different steps to take them apart, and each ship is interesting to navigate. The entire experience is a very relaxed simulator game with a unique style. Over time, there are more and more complications in the game, but nothing that's going to really overwhelm the player, just different challenges, most of which can be done if the player approaches them methodically. The story is a bit eye-rolling, focusing on unionization, but the experience here is worth pushing through it. There's a slow drip feed of interesting new content that will keep the players hooked, and every ship, even ripping apart a ship you already dismantled earlier, is engaging, almost challenging the player to do it faster than before. I ended up playing this for over 16 hours over 2 days because I was so hooked on it, and I kept coming back for a couple hours every few days since then because it's that solid. Pick this up if you like laid-back simulator games. The concept and idea here are good, but there's a question of what you're going to see next or how you'll take apart the next ship that will keep you returning.
If I plant explosives on the radar's pillars, I should be able to bring it down.
Sniper Elite 5. Let's go kill Nazis yet again. Nazis are the easy mode of writing a story. Everyone hates them, and admittedly they deserve it. Once again, Sniper Elite lands the player in the middle of World War II to dismantle and take apart Nazi operations, and once again, it is a very solid game. Sniper Elite returns to the pseudo-open world style of the previous games, and it works again. It heavily reminds me of the style of open world in Metal Gear Solid 5 or Hitman, that style where the player can approach targets from multiple directions using stealth or combat as they choose. Sniper Elite 5 does add a few new features. There is an invasion feature mechanic that feels like it was pulled directly from Dark Souls, and truthfully I wasn't a huge fan of it, but due to that I just turned it off, which is the right way to handle this. There are a lot of optional objectives waiting for the player to find collectibles or stumble on locations, and the enemies are smart, but are still able to be manipulated. While the game is called Sniper Elite, you can also use a lot more stealth and close-range weapons if you prefer. Pick this up if you like shooting Nazis. Also, if you like the Hitman games, I would say check this one out. It's not the same style exactly, but the stealth and gameplay here are very similar, and while there's more focus on killing enemies rather than Hitman's focus on stealth and knocking out enemies, the experience here works great and it's similar enough to be worth considering.
No interest in that one from the batter. McPherson will be wanting to hone in on a better line and length to make them play next.
Cricket 22. I still don't get the sport. Do you know that cricket is played over 50 overs in a single day and a match is multiple days long? We're talking about 7.5 hours of play sometimes in a single day. Every time I try to learn about cricket, it comes off as a very boring game. Cricket 22 tries to teach you about the specific rules in its tutorial. It focuses on topics like LBW, leg before wicket I think, but it really doesn't attempt to teach you the sport itself or why you should love it. The thing is, cricket is like baseball or NASCAR. If you're a fan, you're probably a pretty hardcore fan. But it's kind of hard to really get into these sports, especially cricket. There's strange terminology, very long gameplay, and an uninteresting experience. Cricket 22 also has some glitches, though I will say the career mode was the most interesting part of the game. But at the end of the game, I was still just playing cricket, and that's ultimately the biggest issue. Pick this up if you already like cricket as a sport. I don't think this will convert anyone to loving cricket, but I also don't think that was intended to convert anyone either. This is very much like MLB The Show. It's great at what it does, but it's also very specialized in its target audience. Nothing really wrong with that, though. Pac-Man Museum Plus. Almost every type of Pac-Man lovingly reproduced. 14 Pac-Man games are here and each one is made to play to your heart's content. Do you want to play the original Pac-Man, or maybe you want to play the strange Pac-Land, or even the relatively modern Pac-Man 256? Players will use their virtual money to plunk down coins to play these recreations in their virtual arcade. Every game has a set of missions and challenges to beat, all of which are actually pretty reasonable, and players will get a chance to relive the history of the iconic mascot of Namco. But so a lot is missing here. The 14 games included are good, but where is Miss Pac-Man, which was an improved version of the original game and deserves to be here? Where's Pac-Man Championship DX, which was a better version of Pac-Man Championship Edition? I'm not going to say we need every single edition of Pac-Man here, but there are a few notable exceptions that really should be if this is the ultimate collection. Also, the coin system would have been a good reward for playing the games, but I don't understand why they are needed to start the games or why players are just given 500 of them just for booting up the title. Just a bunch of strange choices along with a deluxe collection. Pick this up if you want to play Pac-Man. If the game you want is included here, this is a great way to experience it. However, there's a lot to be desired in this collection, and this is almost scraping the surface of what should have been included here. I'd probably only give this about a C because so many important titles are missing, and some strange additions are here.
My network of ninja have uncovered the reason for the attack.
Ninja Gaiden Master Collection. 3 games in possibly their best form. The 3D Ninja Gaiden series is one that maybe came out at the wrong time. The first title came out around 5 years before Dark Souls and just beat gamers' butts up and down the streets. I always wondered what it would have been like if it was released after Dark Souls' popularity was in full swing and how people would have perceived it. Well, I guess now we have a chance. I'm sure with that comparison, most people will understand Ninja Gaiden is not messing around. The base game is probably decently harder than Dark Souls, less forgiving with a linear mission and a level structure. With its name, it's not surprising there's a focus on being a ninja instead of an RPG, but in this, it knows what it wants to be and will reward players with both challenge and excellent gameplay. However, the Master Collection is also the Sigma series, which adds in a ton of new content, though supposedly also changes some things. I'm not an expert at these games, so I can't tell you all the intricate details, though I know some people do prefer the original games. The best change though is adding in an easier mode that allows weaker players, aka me, to be able to see the full game here, and these games are quite good, especially those big boss battles. Pick this up if you like a challenging game or have ever heard of Ninja Gaiden. This is a great collection, and while yes, the original trilogy was on the NES, this covers the second trilogy, which is worth playing, and now almost anyone can do it. For Honor Marching Fire Edition. Melee combat between warriors from different eras. For Honor is a multiplayer game where players will battle in a field of combat. There are a few single-player offerings, but the core of For Honor is playing online while fighting against AI opponents or PvP matches. The combat is interesting, forcing players to block and dodge enemy attacks while delivering their own. This really can be seen as more of a 3D fighting game on a large battlefield rather than an action game. Players will spar with each other, attack enemies, and control points, and in that area For Honor does well, but this is also a game that's been around for 5 years, so a lot of the meta has evolved. The community is smaller and well skilled, so if you're going to be joining it, you're going to be spending a lot of time practicing, but that's also kind of what you should expect. Pick this up if you want to spend the time to learn the game and get online to challenge others. As I said, the single player offerings are a bit weak, but if you want to try the game out, you can play through those in a couple nights, but it's multiplayer that's going to keep people here. I'd probably go play more Mordhau if I wanted to play some night combat personally, but I also understand why people love this game as well.
If someone's there, let me out and fight me.
Assassin's Creed Origins, the first of the new Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed has a long lineage of games, and in a lot of ways Assassin's Creed Origins sweeps that away to start a new legacy. The game focuses on rolling back to Egyptian times at the beginning of history, thus Origins. Here, our main character, Bayek, assassinates people and works his way through an involved story in ancient times. The locations are beautifully recreated here, and there's a lot of focus on trying to remain accurate to the real world. Mostly. There are still gods. But this is also where Assassin's Creed starts to lose its way. Origin heavily pushes RPG elements, including leveling, gear, inventory, crafting, and more. While later titles like Odyssey go even further, it's a huge departure from what made the original game special, and feels like every game at this time was going in this direction. Part of the reason, at least for Ubisoft, was to sell microtransactions, but the other part was to refresh the gameplay. I kind of think they failed in the long run, as the sequels were far worse, but Assassin's Creed Origins still retained a tight enough experience with a solid enough story to be enjoyable. Pick this up if you like the Assassin's Creed series. If you already played Odyssey, this might be too similar, but I enjoyed the story here, and while the leveling and gear got annoying near the end of the game, with a small amount of grind required, it's still an enjoyable game, just quite a long one. Spacelines from the Far Out. Co-op resource management with a Slay the Spire theme. Spacelines from the Far Out reminds me a lot of Overcooked, Moving Out, or Out of Space, in that it's a game that's fully intended to be played in multiplayer. Spacelines focuses on piloting a ship and taking passengers through space to get to the next space station and trying to balance making money, taking care of passengers, not running too late, avoiding dangers, and more. It's an overwhelming experience for one player. Spacelines feels like it's meant to be played by more than one player to balance those jobs. This is where Spacelines struggles because most of it attempts to also be a roguelite with a map that evokes the feeling of Slay the Spire, along with bonuses and finding the right routes. The problem is the larger map will take longer to play through when the gameplay found in the game would probably be better aimed at smaller bite-sized levels for groups of players. Pick this up if you want a roguelite with co-op gameplay based on Overcooked or Moving Out style games. However, be prepared for long sessions to play through the game. It's a clever idea, but Spacelines can be more frustrating to play solo and too long of an experience to play with others. Still, it might be fun with the retro futuristic look and interesting ideas if you can find the right group of people.
Ah, Nara, you're here. We have a situation. Pirates seized the ship that's crucial to us.
Chorus, a space combat game across a vast galaxy. Chorus starts in a Descent-style space mine, teaching the player the controls, but then opens up to a massive area for players to explore, find side quests, and tackle large objectives. This is all done while having an upgrade system on all the components in the game, and a shop for players to continually improve themselves. The action is at the heart here, and it's usually intense space battles with ships flying around, trying to tag each other with attacks. Chorus's one weakness is the story, or more likely the way it introduces that story. As a player, I barely understood who I was as a character or what the AI that I was talking to was about, let alone the massive conflict in this universe between these different factions. The good news is you can kind of push that story aside and have some amazing moments. There were at least 3 major missions that were extremely exciting to play, and the rest of the universe is out there to explore to find more. Pick this up if you like space flight and space fighting. This is far more action than a sim game. It's, more Star Wars Squadrons or Free Space than Elite Dangerous, but it does a great job with it. I wish the story was better, of course, but once you hit a mission where you get control of a big old ship and take down a ton of enemies, you really won't mind too much. Disc Room, a game of deadly discs. Disc Room involves a large maze with players having accomplished different goals to unlock new rooms. This can be anything from surviving 10 to 20 seconds to dying to different enemies along the way, boss battles, or even mystery tasks. The large map as well as the solid art style makes the game interesting to play for a while. The difficulty in Disc Room can be frustrating at times, though some excellent accessibility modes can make it so that anyone can be able to tackle the game, and that is very much appreciated. The one big issue with this title though is it does get a little monotonous even with the variety of rooms. At the end of the day, the experience is about trying to avoid dying to discs when different rules appear. Though I did push through and reach the second ending of the game, which was pretty fun. Pick this up if you like struggling to fight your way to the top of the leaderboards. A lot of these rooms are going to require a decent amount of effort. There are some puzzle aspects here, though a couple did require me to just do a Google search. Still, it's a fun game to pick up and try on Game Pass, kind of the perfect game for that.
Look at those rotations! Just a minute!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And yeah, that song is actually in the game, and even with the new version, it's still good. This is a throwback. It's a new game, but it oozes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game and Turtles in Time so much that I wonder how people who haven't played those games will understand it. It's a love letter to a series that has a lot of fans, and there's so much here. Just starting the game with the Bebop and Rocksteady fights throws me back to when I was pumping quarters into the arcade machine. When I started the game, all I wanted to do was be able to fling the enemies at the screen, and of course it is there. The game itself is a bit easy, though this is a side-scrolling button masher as the original games were. With up to 6 players in co-op, there's a massive group of players on screen, and the ability to play online or just find people to team up with is a nice touch. The animations are really good, each of the turtles is slightly different, and you now get the ability to play as April O'Neil or Splinter because, of course, they needed to have 6 players. I've actually heard Casey Jones is available according to the trailers, but haven't seen him yet. The downside though is I'm fanboying out on this game. This is pure nostalgia, and while players might come to this game without that legacy of the Turtles games, this is made to emulate those original titles and remind the fans of those games. That's alright, but it might be harder for new players to connect to this title the same as others. Pick this up if you have a love of the Turtles arcade game or Turtles in Time. If you love beat 'em ups, you might want to try this, but be aware that this is very button mashy and doesn't have as deep a fighting system as some of the other titles. But that's really how a Turtles game should be. It is an easier version of Streets of Rage 4, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's what I have for Game Pass this month. 18 titles this month, which is quite a bit. There's everything from the AAA to the smallest indie, and most of them were extremely entertaining. Microsoft announced the first set of games for June a week earlier than previously and has yet to announce the second set, so hopefully that comes out on the same day as this video, but there's been a week here with only a single release. That being said, Microsoft did have a couple showcases there, which we'll talk about in a minute. I don't have too much more to say, though there are a ton of games here, so let's just talk about the 5 best. The 5th strongest game of this month is Her Story. I did call this one of the best of the years, and I still stand by it, but I also tend to look at the length of these titles when talking about the best and worst of Game Pass games, and Her Story is a bit short. That being said, it shows exactly how powerful narratives can be in games, and I recommend this game to everyone. The 4th strongest of this month is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. This was a perfect nostalgic trip, and I'm looking forward to getting together with friends and playing through even more. This is a fantastic game with so many wonderful moments. It's only this low due to it being aimed at a specific category of players who fondly remember the other Turtle titles. The 3rd strongest of this month is Vampire Survivors. I put in so much time in this game and I loved it. It's the right mix of a roguelite with minor progression and interesting stages. It's also wicked cheap, so if you don't have Game Pass, you can consider picking this up for the price of a cup of coffee, which makes it a fantastic deal. The 2nd strongest of this month is Hardspace Shipbreaker. Maybe it's my love of incrementals, maybe I like the puzzle aspects here, maybe I just like the mechanics of tearing something apart, but I played a lot of Shipbreaker and I keep going back to this title. This was an absolute joy to play. The strongest title of this month is Sniper Elite 5. It's the biggest release of the month, it was a day 1 release, and this series is extremely good. The open world aspects of this map are definitely what has kept me engaged. The ability to approach targets in multiple ways is nice, but also the ability to find different things to do as you're crossing the map to the major targets make for a great experience. And that's my top games of June 2022, but like I said, Microsoft actually had a couple shows and they showed a great graphic that I'm going to be showing up here as well. Now notice some of these games are not flagged for Game Pass, yet this list is absolutely incredible. I'm excited about the Persona series coming to PC, Slime Rancher 2, Starfield, the new real Forza, and Gaiden Chronicles, the full game there. But there are a ton of great games coming, so the future does look quite bright for the service. I'll be covering all those games as we get our hands on them, so I hope you'll stay tuned. The best way to do that is to subscribe and ring that bell if you haven't already. Now apparently last month something broke in the YouTube algorithm and a ton of new people checked out my videos, which was completely awesome. Welcome everyone, whether you're new or old, thank you for watching this far in the video, and if you want to help out the channel, like, share, and comment on this video. That apparently always helps boost these videos and does matter. I'm going to be popping up my video on Her Story here. I think it does a good job of explaining why you should check that title out. I'm sure YouTube will put something interesting in the other slot. See you next time.